So look, I'm gonna go downstairs and give me like 2 seconds and then do a mic check. I'm gonna do and I'm gonna let
It's
you
not on the mic yet,
No, I know. I just want to make sure that they can hear. So.
It is.
All right, you already did that. Y'all went down there and checked it. All right. I'm gonna trust you, brother. Let's go.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Walhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillahi wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Put it up on this thing.
Yeah.
Oh, that's what you're telling me?
Yeah, I was trying to free your hands up.
Oh, jazakallah khair.
Easy.
Well, you justified it. Scoot back.
First off, we'd like to welcome all the guests to the Masjid. Hayakum Allah. Allah yubarak fikum. I'm glad, alhamdulillah, see a nice little turnout. And we apologize for all the, I guess you could say, delays. Schedule confusion, so alhamdulillah. What I'm going to talk about quickly, inshallah, I'm not going to hold up everybody for too long because I know everybody's hungry. Everybody's thinking about some curry chicken. Is that what they got today?
Butter chicken.
Butter chicken?
Chicken muscle. What did you do?
Butter. This does sound better than I'll start off with the Hadith of Abi Hurairah radiallahu anhu, because this was the topic of the original gathering that we were supposed to have in the first place. So it's only right that we talk about this Hadith, inshallah. So the Hadith of Abi Hurairah radiallahu anhu, عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قال: من نفس المؤمن كربة من كرب الدنيا نفس الله عنه كربة من كرب يوم القيامة. ومن يسر على معسر يسره الله عليه في الدنيا والآخرة. ومن ستر مسلما ستره الله في الدنيا والآخرة. والله بعون العبد ما كان العبد في عون أخيه. ومن سلك طريقا يلتمس فيه علما سهل الله به طريقا إلى الجنة. وما اجتمع قوم في بيت من بيوت الله يتلون كتاب الله ويتدارسونه بينهم إلى نزلت عليهم السكينة وغشيتهم الرحمة وحفتهم الملائكة وذكرهم الله في من عنده. ومن بطأ به عمله لم يسرع به نصبه. This hadith is in Sahih Muslim and Abi Hurairah, in which he said, "Man nafasa and mu'minin kurabata min kurab dunya." So whoever relieves a burden, and it comes from the word nafasa, it means what? It comes from the word nafas. Nafas, it means to what? Anybody? Nafas. Nafas is to breathe. Because if you have a real restricted life and you're living in stress and you know everything, like you're having a hard time paying the bills, hard time putting food on the table, what happens now? You have a hard time breathing. You have no breathing room in your life. You have no nafas. So here the Arabic verb is nafasa. It means to relieve a burden from somebody. And he said kurabatan min kurab dunya. That if you relieve a burden from one of your brothers in this dunya, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will relieve what? He'll relieve a burden for you on the day of judgment. نفس المؤمن كربة من كرب الدنيا نفس الله عنه كربة من كرب اليوم القيامة. So from amongst all of those difficulties that you have to go through on the day of judgment, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will relieve one of those burdens. So just like how you see the brothers have difficult times, and we come together, and again it goes back to that whole concept of going back to the khutbah about working together and being a community. And that whenever we see the Muslims going through any types of trials and tribulations, we all have to come together. Because one day it's going to be our turn. And today it's me, today it's you, today it's somebody else, but we all work together and we all, we have a ta'awun. Where, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in the Quran, He said, وَتَعَاوَنُوا عَلَى الْبِرِّ وَالتَّقْوَى وَلَا تَعَاوَنُوا عَلَى الْإِثْمِ وَالْعُدْوَانِ. What does ta'awun mean?
Ta'awun, cooperation.
Yes, it means to cooperate. So whenever you have a verb form in the Arabic language, ta'awanu, tafa'alu, it means that you do this between each other, that you come together, you encourage and you work together to do good. Ta'awanu ala birri wa taqwa, righteousness and good actions. وَلَا تَعَاوَنُوا عَلَى إِيش عَلَى إِثْمِ وَالْعُدْوَانِ. And don't come together and work together to establish sin and falsehood and enmity, because that's what happens. So here we have to relieve each other. We give each other that type of nafas. When you see the brother is so stressed out try to help him out and try to relieve some of those burdens so he can breathe, you know, because we're men. And as men, we don't like to feel less than what we are, right? And whenever we're going through these trials and tribulations, doesn't it kind of destroys your confidence as a man, doesn't it? So we try to boost the brother back up, and try to get him back to feeling confident again and taking care of his family and doing what he's got to do as a man. And that's how we treat each other, inshallah. So he said, "Man nafasa and mu'min qurbatin min qurbat dunya, nafasa Allah anhu qurbatin min qurba yawm al-qiyamah. Wa man yassara ala mu'sirin, yassarahu Allah alayhi fi dunya wal akhirah." So whoever here, we just took the word yassara wa asara, right? But here it's not talking about just anybody with difficulties. It's talking about a person who's taking a debt from you, and he's having trouble paying it back. But you know that he's really having trouble. It's not like he's got a debt with you, but he went out and bought some, you know, new Air Jordans or something like that, right? No, he's got a debt with you, and he's having trouble paying it back. So how do we handle the situation as Muslims with one another?
Make it easy on
Turn it into zakat.
You know, I mean, not necessarily forgive it. You don't have to forgive it.
Make it easy.
You could. I mean, that's give. Like right now, you have this brother has a debt with you. He's agreed that he's going to borrow a certain amount of money from you for, let's say, a month. He said, "I'm going to pay you back at the end of January." Now the end of January comes, he doesn't have the money, but he's been trying to get the money. So what do you do now? Now it's his duty now to pay that money back, and it's your right to even go to the masjid and say, "Everybody, I lent him money and he did not pay me back," and announce that to the people, and you can embarrass him. But what do you do now? Now that you know the hadith, man yassara ala mu'sir, that means that now you look at a situation and say, "Look, akhi, I know that you're going through some difficult times. What do you say? Like, do you think you can have the money to me by, let's say, what about the end of February? Do you think you can do that, or at least some of it?" And he says, "Yes." Okay, khalas, relax. You got to the end of February, you know, and give him some extra time. Give him some respite, you know, but that's under the condition of what? He's actually going through difficulties. He's not, you know, he's not over there shopping, you know, buying all these new clothes and while he owes you money. Now I don't have the money to pay you back. No, it doesn't work like that. You get up in the masjid and say, "Nah, this brother did this." Let the people know, you know, so the people don't trust him and lend the money again. But if he's having difficulties, yes, make it easy on him. Give him some time. Give him some, you know, extra time. And he said after that, he said, وَمَنْ سَتَرَ مُسْلِمًا سَتَرَهُ اللَّهُ فِي الدُّنْيَا. Or back to this one first, he said, and whoever makes easy on the person that's having problems paying back the debt, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give him ease in the dunya and the akhirah. So you have that ease with your own wealth and this life, and then you have ease on the next in the next life, inshallah, on the day of judgment. And then after that he said, وَمَنْ سَتَرَ مُسْلِمًا سَتَرَهُ اللَّهُ فِي الدُّنْيا وَالْآخِرَةِ. And whoever covers up the sins or the faults of another Muslim, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will cover up his sins and his faults on what? On the day of judgment. So this is when we're dealing with each other, we're not trying to expose each other, we're not trying to degrade each other, because again, we're all going to have faults. We cover up those faults for our brother. Now as long as those faults do not what? Do not affect the community. They affect the community, then people need to know about it. If there's something if there's a type of fault, if this brother's going to go get married, and he's known for beating women, or he's known for doing this type of stuff, no, we don't cover that type of stuff up. That stuff needs to be made known to the woman who wants to marry the brother, that this is the type of person he is, and you know. But when we're just dealing with each other on a regular basis, you got a brother, maybe he's got a problem, he smokes weed. Cover that up. You know, it's not affecting the community, it's affecting him as a person. Cover that up, hide that, and give him advice, and keep giving him advice. There's no need to like embarrass the brother and you know, and go out and just tell everybody what he's doing. Or maybe the brother's having problems, we got some girlfriends or something like that. Stuff like that, you know, cover it up and give him advice, But if it affects the community and affects the people, then now that's something different. Somebody that has a business and he's trying to, you know, he gets money for business, but then he always what? You know, he scams people and does, we don't cover that stuff up. We let the people know that because we're protecting the Muslims. Our job is to protect the Muslims. You know, so, but if it's something small, and it's little just sinful behavior, things that the people do, cover that stuff up and give the brother advice. You know, din al-nasiha. This religion is what?
Advice.
Giving people advice, giving good advice. And then after that he said, وَمَنْ سَتَرَ مُسْلِمًا سَتَرَ اللَّهُ فِي الدُّنْيَا وَالْآخِرَةِ. He said, وَاللَّهُ فِي عَوْنِ الْعَبْدِ مَا كَانَ الْعَبْدُ فِي عَوْنِ أَخِيهِ. He said Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will continue to be in the aid and assistance of a servant as long as that servant is in what? The aid of his brother. As long as you consistently assist your brothers, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will consistently what?
Assist you.
Assist you. And He'll give you the aid that you need as you're giving the aid to everybody else. And this is all about community. I mean, the only way that we're going to ever achieve anything is by working together. No one person can achieve anything great. Nobody. Everything that was achieved, what would the Prophet ﷺ been? What would he have been without the Sahaba? How much could he have achieved? So you have to understand, he's the greatest of all mankind. You have to have a community. You have to have people working together. You have to have people united on the Quran and the Sunnah, giving down the Tawheed. If we're not working together, we're either working together or we're what?
Going apart.
Or we're working against each other. It's one of the two. So we have to establish that. We have to establish that type of brotherhood and assist each other. We're not here. This is not a contest about who's in charge. It's not a contest about power. This is not a contest. Now you got to come back to me. You don't. You don't have to come back to me. Nobody. You don't have to go back to anybody else. It's not about who's in charge. This is about establishing the truth and getting the people to follow the truth. But I don't call you to follow me, and I don't call you to follow anybody else except for the Prophet ﷺ. Even my own sheikh, I'm not a follower of my sheikh. I'm a student of him. If he makes a mistake, I don't agree with him. I don't follow him in his mistakes. I only follow him in the things that he agrees with the Quran and the Sunnah. This is not a contest between us. All of us, we should have one goal in mind, and that goal is what?
Worship Allah, get the
to
Jannah.
get the Jannah, and not be punished in that grave, because that grave is not a joke. You know, think these streets are rough, and you think what goes on in society and our lives are rough. Nah, man, it's nothing. You're going to forget all that in 1 second in the grave. You know, even Imam Shafi'i, he mentioned that about, 1 second in the grave will make you forget your wedding night. You understand? 1 second, one little glimpse of the grave. When you get put in the grave, you'll forget your wedding night. What's the greatest night that you had? That first night that you got married, and that first night that you spent with your wife. It's the greatest feeling, right? You'll forget that in a second in the grave. So what about everything else? You forget it. This dunya is not worth fighting over. It's not. If it was worth fighting over, then what? And the Prophet ﷺ fought over the dunya. He didn't fight over the dunya. What did he fight for? He fought to establish Tawheed and the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You are supposed to be obedient to Allah, not to me and not to anybody else. Your obedience is to who? Allah and His Messenger. As long as we can understand that, and that's what we're trying to establish, and we come together and we strive and struggle to work to establish that, that's unity. And that's what we unite upon. We don't unite on anything else. We don't unite over personalities, and this person and that person, we're going to follow the sheikh, and if you don't want to follow the sheikh, and we're not going to talk to you, we're not doing it. And this is obedience to Allah and His Messenger. So this is what it's about, inshallah. So he said, after he mentioned this, he said, in Allah, so he said, nobody from amongst the people gathered in a house from one of the houses amongst the houses of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, يَتَلُونَ كِتَابَ اللَّهِ, and they're reciting the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, وَيَتَدَارَسُونَهُ بَيْنَهُم, and he said, and they're studying it, and they study this book, they study the Quran, because they want to know what are we, not just to perfect their pronunciation with the huruf, or not to perfect their recitation. They want to know, how can we act on this book? This is the Quran. This is guidance to all mankind. How can we act? So they study it between them. So from them doing this action in the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, sakina, which is tranquility, comes down in the hearts of the people. What's the like? You look at your lives, right? When do you feel the most peace of mind? It's when you're sitting in the masajid. You're sitting in the masjid, and you're either in a dars, you're sitting there taking a lesson, you're studying hadith, you're studying Quran. That's when you feel peace of mind. All the dunya is just gone. You forget everything, all your problems. Everybody tonight probably came in with problems. But you forget them, because that tranquility comes down. And you sit back and you focus on it, because you're seeing now that these dunya problems are nothing, They're nothing. They're just like headaches, and they're like little obstacles in the path. We have to get around these obstacles to get to the main goal. So here, that tranquility comes down. وَإِلَّا نَزَلَتْ عَلَيْهِمُ السَّكِينَةُ. was وَغَشْيَتْهُمُ الرَّحْمَةِ, and the mercy, it encompasses them. It completely was. It encompasses them. You know? And then he said, وَحَفَّتْهُمُ الْمَلَائِكَةِ, and the malaika, they come down and they put their wings down. And they sit down in these types of cities. They got certain malaika, the sayyara, that they go around looking for these majalis of dhikr just to sit down and listen. So with that, this is the type of companions that we look for. When we're sitting in these majalis of knowledge, we're like reminding each other of the Quran and Sunnah and what we need to do as Muslims. Look at the beauty, look at the benefit of these types of cities. You get a little bit of knowledge. And even in a hadith, I'm not going to go over the whole hadith because it's very long, and every time I read this hadith I cry. But in the last part of the hadith, he said, the angels, they were in the city, and they said, but there was one man from amongst them. I'm going to cry when I say this part of the hadith right now, because this is the part that makes me cry. I'm almost done. There was one man from amongst them. He was just, he was just passing by. He's not from them. He wasn't sitting with them. He saw a gathering, right? He saw them sitting in the masjid, and he just sat down with them. He said, well, so what about him? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, you tell my servants, I've forgiven all of them. And then the angel said, what about this guy? He wasn't from amongst them. He didn't come to study. He just sat with them. He said, hum qawmun la yashqa bihim jalisuhum. He said, kadalik ghafartu lahu hum qawmun la yashqa bihim jalisuhum. He said, and him, I've forgiven him. He said, because these are a people of learning that love the knowledge of this deen. He said, nobody that sits with them is going to be disappointed. I'll forgive everybody, even the person who's just sitting with them. He's not trying to study, but because he's sitting with them, I'll forgive them. So these types of sittings, these are what we need to make the most important. Of sitting here, learning our deen, of knowing what we have to do as Muslims, and come together as brothers and try to establish that in our daily lives. After that, he said, وَحَفَتْهُمُ الْمَلَائِكَةِ وَذَكَرَهُمُ اللَّهُ فِي مَنْ عِنْدَهُ. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will mention them in the angels, amongst the angels, that he has what they call the Mala'ul A'la, which is the highest party of the angels, the angels that are right there under the arsh. So Allah mentions these people, mentions us, people like you, Saki, nobody's like us, but Allah mentions us to the angels for being in these types of cities. He said, وَذَكَرَهُمُ اللَّهُ فِي مَنْ عِنْدَهُ. He said, وَمَنْ بَطَعَ بِهِ عَمَلُهُ لَمْ يُسْرِعْ بِهِ نَسَبُهُ. And he said, whoever from amongst you is slow to act, his lineage is not going to make up for the slack. You understand? On the day of judgment, your lineage and who you are and who your family is and who your daddy is means nothing. If you're slow to act, nothing is going to make up for your lack of action. No lineage or no bloodline or no nothing. We all have to act. We all have to focus on doing the things that are pleasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Wallahu a'lam.